This is Mobile Agent TV, helping agents stay on the cutting edge from coast to coast.
Welcome to Mobile Agent TV. I am Michael Thorne of Remax Little Oak Realty in Langley, BC, and my co-host, as always, is Dave Falkwer from Bridgewater, New Jersey's Remax Preferred Professionals in the Enviro Realty team. Dave, keeping with today's theme, and you don't have to say Youtility, favorite business book of all time?
Think and Grow Rich.
That's a classic. I think everyone probably on this call has read that book. So
I
agree with that.
Read it multiple times.
During the broadcast, you can interact with us live on Twitter using the hashtag MATVLive. I'll keep my eye on that. You can also get us on Twitter at Mobile Agent TV, and I will enable the Q&A feature right now. So if you're watching on the blog, you can just click on the screen right now and ask us questions. And Terry Conrad already says this is going to be good. So that's how quickly the Q&As come in. So you can do that. Also, we're going to have a lot of new viewers today because of the guests that we have on. You can go to mobileagenttv.com if you're not already watching live. And right there on the right-hand side of the screen, you can sign up for our newsletter, which is just basically a video email that goes out a couple days before our show, letting you know who's coming on the show and what we're going to be talking about. So let's get right into it today because we're going to have a full show. We'd like to welcome our guests. First of all, I'd like to introduce Erica Campbell Byrum, and as always, we read out our guests' 160 Twitter bio. You can get her on Twitter at Erica Campbell. It reads Director of Social Media at Homes.com, at Apartments for Rent, co-author of Youtility for Real Estate, jock, wine lover, industry speaker, and wanderlust. What do you do? Welcome to the show, Erica.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I am really excited to be here with Jay, of course. We are excited to introduce the Youtility for Real Estate to you guys. I have actually been with Homes.com and for rent. I've been with our parent company for over 10 years. And 9 of those years I've spent time in the real estate space. And I actually started off with our vacation rental startup called rentalshouse.com, which is now known as forgetaway.com. Once we sold the Weather Channel, that parted ways. And ever since then, I've been operating under forrent.com and homes.com, which are our real estate and multifamily housing portals. And I oversee our corporate social media and our social media client services.
Perfect. Thanks for bringing here. And we'd like to introduce Jay Baer. You can get him on Twitter at JBaer, B-A-E-R. And it reads New York Times bestselling author, marketing consultant, keynote speaker, president of Convince and Convert at www.convinceandconvert.com. Welcome to the show.
Thanks very much for having me, Michael, Dave. Terrific to be here with our friends at Mobile Agent TV.
And Jay, just a quick, Youtility, and we're going to get into Youtility, isn't a real estate book. I think it speaks to the real estate industry because of the personal relationships that are built in our industry. But just talk about your history in business and authorship of books like Youtility.
Sure, thanks very much. So I've been in digital marketing now for 20 years. So before we even had a browser, before Yahoo, way before Google, and I have been in the consulting side for pretty much that entire time. Convince and Convert, which is the consulting firm I run now, works with large companies all across the world on social media and content marketing strategy. And one of the things I started to recognize after I wrote my first book, The Now Revolution, with Amber Nasson, which is all about social media's impact on business, after we published that book, I started to see this concept of companies really trying to give away value in exchange for attention and customer loyalty, and that was sort of the genesis of Youtility. In fact, what I talk about in the Youtility book was the very first time that I thought about the concept was actually in Canada, in Banff. It was where I originally came up with the idea and came across a guy named Taxi Mike, who's a cab driver that practices Youtility, and from that sort of seed became a keynote presentation, and then the New York Times bestselling book, and then Youtility for Accountants was published in March, and now Youtility for Real Estate with Erica, and certainly we believe that real estate professionals really can build their businesses using these principles.
Absolutely, and in fact, I'm going up to speak at a conference in Banff in January, and I'll do everything I can to hunt down Taxi Mike. So there you go. So just for people that aren't familiar, and we're going to be talking about the new book, which is Youtility for Real Estate, but it is kind of like a supplementary book that goes along with Youtility. I mean, to get the most out of Youtility, you have to go get the Youtility book at utilitybook.com, and then these examples are almost putting it in the spectrum of the real estate industry, so it makes it a little bit more clear. But Jay, for those that don't really know or haven't read the first Youtility book, which I encourage everyone to, I've been super loud about it since I read it last year, is by definition, what is Youtility?
So Youtility is marketing so useful that people would pay for it. It's marketing with so much intrinsic and inherent value that if you said, hey, would you kick in a couple dollars to receive this? People would say, yeah, I actually would kick in a couple dollars to receive that. Now, you don't actually charge people because it is marketing. It's going to benefit you eventually, but it is so good, so useful that people would pay for it if you made them do so. It's marketing that people actually want to receive instead of what we've done for 1,000 years, which is mostly create marketing that people simply tolerate. And small companies can do that, big companies can do that. I appreciate you mentioning the Youtility book and how it ties to Youtility for real estate. That's one of the reasons why Youtility for real estate, which launches officially on 4th of November, is so inexpensive. Right? It's $2.99, at least US on Amazon. I'm not certain if it's $2.99 in Canada as well, but it's really, really inexpensive because the idea, hopefully, is that you read the book that's all about real estate and then you want the rest of the story, which you can find in the full-length book.
But Jay,
I said the little thing you sent us, and right away I need that other book because it talks about a blueprint.
Yeah, that's right. The full-size book kind of has the step-by-step sort of tactical plan to put Youtility into practice. So thanks, Dave. I'm glad to know that it works.
It does.
Jay, just based on what you just said, though, it's marketing that's so useful that you pay for it. Is that where people get hiccuped on? Is that you're actually using the word marketing? Because Youtility doesn't really come across as marketing in the traditional sense that we're so accustomed to. It's not a bus bench ad. It's not an ad in the newspaper. So when you say marketing, is that where people sort of get off track? Is that they go to the traditional definition of that word?
That's a really good point, and I haven't actually been asked that very often in the past. I think it's very perceptive of you. Absolutely, that's because you think about historically, all marketing is just right in your face, like please buy stuff from us, please hire me. There has been very little subtlety, or what we call in the book marketing sideways, throughout history, and so this is a different way to build relationships by giving value away, and it does take a little bit of time to kind of get your head around it.
Erica, the genesis of Youtility for real estate, I think you talk about how it sort of came about at the beginning of the book, sort of in the foreword, but just talk about the collaboration with Jay and why do you think it's such a great fit for the real estate industry?
Yeah, the first time I met, actually, he was a keynote speaker at the New Media Summit, which was an internet summit that we had in multifamily. And from that point on, I was a huge fan of his work. And some of our employees have been to Content Marketing World and heard him speak. So this past January, I actually asked our company if Jay could come into the Hampton Roads Marketplace and speak for the American Marketing Association as a sponsorship, and then do a private event for our company. And so that was a great time for our teams to be exposed to the concept, encourage them to read the book. And then when he was in town, he just said, hey, I'm working on a new project called Youtility for Real Estate. We should collaborate. So I think after my initial shock wore off, I was absolutely thrilled. It's been a really fun experience that I'm grateful for, and I've seen, at Homes.com and ForRent.com, we're living this concept of Youtility now, and we're making tweaks to it, and we're adapting it, and we're seeing changes right away. So, we're firm believers in this concept, and I think it's absolutely perfect for our real estate space.
I completely agree. Dave, when you read Youtility for real estate, and I read it, and like I said, I read Youtility last year, doesn't it sound a whole lot like Mobile Agent TV, Dave?
Yeah, that's been on the top of my mind. The minute I did it, it's like that's what we're doing, and that it works. It's absolutely what we're doing.
I mean, for us, this show, David, it makes us better at our jobs. We get to sit down on the front line and interview some great people, and there's definitely nuggets I've taken away from interviews that have improved my business. But ultimately, the hopes is that we are giving away this information, or at least being the curator or the resource to give away this information, that people in our industry, when they think about Bridgewater, New Jersey, they think about Dave Falkware, and there's the value.
Well, yeah, and it's changed my business. Just turned it around, turned it upside down totally. my relationship with you and the people that we've talked to on this show, and it's all about we're giving it away, and man, it's coming back at me like I can't even keep up with it, to be honest with you.
Attaboy. But you know what's interesting about that, Dave, is that the return on utility sometimes, in most cases, takes a while, and that's one of the challenges with this kind of business building. Gary Vaynerchuk, who many listeners are probably familiar with, a great social media consultant and entrepreneur, has a saying that I like to parrot, which is everybody in business today wants to be a hunter, and nobody wants to be a farmer. And if utility for real estate is one thing, it is the how-to guide for farming your business as a real estate professional. Because when you give something away, by definition, the returns on that are going to take a little while. And part of our challenge is that people want to try and close the deal immediately. They want customers right now. What can you do for me that are going to generate customers right now? There's a saying in business that says the best time to plant a tree was 25 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is right now. And that's what utility for real estate is all about, embracing the power of building customer relationships eventually, but you got to give it away first.
Yeah, and that was actually on the list of things to chat about, because I think that is a hiccup for a lot of people, especially for people that are just getting their business going. And Dave and I talk about the show all the time, the benefit of building a business in real estate opposed to being transactional. And utility only works for people that are in the mindset of building a business because there is a long-term return, but that doesn't mean it doesn't make sense. And like you say, you best get going now, because the beautiful thing about utility is it can't be purchased. If I want to have the best website in my marketplace, I can shell over $20,000 and have the best website in my marketplace tomorrow. But you can't purchase utility. You can't purchase that equity, that social equity amongst whomever you're speaking to just by forking out dollars. It's going to take time. It's about giving stuff away. All right, so let's go on to the thing, Jay, you talk about quite often, and you talk about utility, and it's the one thing. Talk about the one thing and what it is.
Yeah, I actually just created a SlideShare presentation this week as well on a content marketing strategy framework on our blog that talks about the one thing a lot as well. And really, it's what makes you different and special. It's a real problem in real estate in particular, because there's very little differentiation between real estate professionals within the same market or even across different markets. You know, people who don't do this for a living think of realtors and they think of them all the same, that they operate this same, they do the same things. There's just very little understanding of differences in the market. For example, there are, of course, some real estate professionals that almost always represent buyers, others that almost always represent sellers, but that difference, that distinction is largely lost on the layperson. And so when we talk about the one thing, it's really what makes you and your organization different and special. And it's not a feature, it's not a benefit, it's not a bullet point, it's here. It's what is the soul of your organization that people should actually care about. What do you believe in? It's the theory of the firm. Sometimes people call it that. Or my friend Steve Woodruff, who does a lot of brand consulting, says it's the only we sentence. So only we ... And then what is the end of that sentence? That's your one thing. And you really have to have a handle on what that is, because once you do, then you can build utility that brings that one thing to life, that sort of surfaces that core difference. And the big problem is not even marketing, it's not even utility, is that most people don't know what that one thing is. They have no idea what makes them different or special. And if you don't know what makes you different or special, why the hell would your customers know?
And certainly, if you don't know what it is, Jay, you can't put it into your storytelling and into your content. If you're not aware with it, then you don't have that backbone to differentiate yourself from the competition.
Yeah, or you put things in, but it's inconsistent, right? Because you don't really know what makes you different, and so you sort of sprinkle a bunch of stuff in all over the place that sends mixed messages, right? So at one point you're emphasizing how helpful you are, another time you emphasize that you're low cost, another time you emphasize that you really have expertise, another, and so you're sending out all these different messages about what is your one thing, and so what most people end up with is either zero differentiator or they try to come up with 5, and that doesn't work either.
Jay, would you say that's more like the definition is going deep versus going wide? Just go deep, go very, very deep. Focus on that one thing.
Absolutely, Dave. In fact, there's a couple of examples in the book of real estate professionals who have done that really well. There's a guy who says, "Look, I only represent sellers in the $200,000 to $400,000 category. That's what I do. I'm the best in my region at it. Here's why. If you are 150, don't call me. If you're 450, don't call me. If you want to buy something, don't call me." Right? He's like, "This is my thing."
And we've even had it with what's her name, Jones in Seattle.
Yeah, Ann Jones. Yeah.
Ann Jones. I mean, she's carved out her and Marguerite too as well. Done carved out. This is the only thing I work with, and
That's right.
It's super beneficial to them too as well. Erica has been so kind. For Homes.com is going to be giving away 5 copies of Youtility for real estate. And so if you are watching this recorded, which many of you are, if you're listening to this on the podcast, the audio podcast afterwards, they're going to be gone, so you can ignore this, but stay tuned. We will give away 5 copies of Youtility for real estate during the live show. Erica, there's a quote in the book that I wanted you to sort of expand on. The secret to success for real estate agents is to be the most useful agent you can be and give value over selling. And we are salesmen, and we get into that routine that there is a take before a give. Expand on that thought that you have to be the most useful real estate agent possible.
Yeah, so in Jay's book, Youtility, he talks about how if you sell something, you make a customer today, but if you help someone and you genuinely help them, you can create a client for life. And his concept's all about making long-term gains versus these short-term gains. And when it comes to content and social media, for example, in real estate, I oftentimes see a lot of real estate professionals that are just pushing their listings and open houses and closings, and that's all centered and focused around that short-term gain. So Jay's concept really allows us to be more open-minded about producing information that's outside of our core business, right? So that information is going to allow us to help create those long-lasting relationships. And I think as an industry, we have a huge opportunity for that. And I know as soon as we made the shift in our business, we saw that transition. Instead of focusing from hype to help, we really started to see an increase in customer engagement and retention. So it does work. And like you mentioned before, it may not be overnight, but you're going to see that long-term gain.
Absolutely. I think one of the pieces of advice that if when I'm out speaking to agents is I think the opportunities for realtors, and I think it's basically the definition of Youtility, is to become larger than the real estate transaction. And if you can find a way to become larger than the real estate transaction, mobile agent T, for example, or what we've built, and we've talked about on the show many times, is our community, the My North Landing community, where we have tried to become the social mayor of our community. Now, we don't actually bring that, we have emails every day saying, can you please ask this question, or my kid's having a fundraiser for the baseball team, can you promote it? And all I have to do is cut and paste it, but I get the kudos, or our team gets the kudos for it. So there's an opportunities out there to become larger than the real estate transaction, but I think for us, we're just so busy inside it that we don't really know what the value is. In the book that we just had on Steve Murphy, who's with Real Trends, they found that the 3 most important things for buyers in 2014 is really great negotiation skills, but number 2 was educate me on the process, and number 3 was educate me on the community. Well, both those things happened during the 0 moment of truth, far beyond, and sound a whole lot like opportunities to implement Youtility, Jay.
Oh, no question. It's one of the reasons I wanted to write Youtility for real estate as opposed to Youtility for something else, is that we call that in the book giving yourself permission to make the story bigger. And realtors know so much more than just the blocking and tackling of buying and selling property, right? They know the schools, they know the restaurants, they know the places to hang out, they know all the insider information. I mean, they're essentially, Yelp, but doing a different business. And so they have to give themselves permission to actually give away that expertise as well. There's an example in the book from Casino, which is a brokerage in South Carolina, and they do videos on a regular basis that aren't necessarily industry shows like you guys do, but they actually go out and interview local businesses and say, hey, tell me about your restaurant, tell me about your farm, tell me about your knitting store. They're almost like doing a Chamber of Commerce kind of function, but they do it really well. They put it on YouTube, and they're sort of lifting up the entire community. And because they have all these content assets, all these utilities, people find, when they're doing research about the community, they find these videos. Oh, who's this brought to you by? This brokerage? Oh, maybe I should call those guys when I'm ready to look at some stuff.
Absolutely. Dave, you're walking around one of your communities that you work, let's say, or Somerset or whatever it's called. It's not about square footage. That information is public. It certainly isn't about the number of bathrooms. That information is public. Your expertise is actually in the real estate transaction, the nuts and the bolts and taking care of them. But it's also have to do with you're sort of a lifestyle ambassador, or like Jay said, you're more of a chamber of commerce type of a character to bring the value that they can't Google.
Well, you're right. In my case, the videos that we made are about the active adult communities over 55, and we're actually in the process of changing those and making them even better, and including some of this stuff more about the lifestyle versus because our original video had houses in it, but I did stuff in the area, and one of the ideas I've had for a very long time, which this after I read this Utility for Real Estate, was I've always wanted to do a restaurant review kind of a thing. I've been wanting to do that for so long, and I've got so much content that it's something that I can have fun doing, and I know I'm going to I'll have a reaction to it. So it's brought a lot of stuff to me that I've been able to kind of put at the top of mind now.
Erica, speak on what Dave just said about having fun doing it. I mean, if you do choose an avenue in utility, and probably speaks to the one thing too as well, it only makes sense that it's something that you're passionate about and want to do, because it makes doing it consistently and bringing value a whole lot easier than forcing yourself to do something that you're going to not want to do, because utility is a marathon. It's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it needs to be fun and not forceful. And in the book, we talk a lot about top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel. And once you kind of find your lane, your niche, and which function you want to focus on first, it should be fun, and it should position you as that local expert. So absolutely, you have to enjoy that in order for it to actually be useful.
Jay, when I ask you questions like I did earlier, and you say that's a great question, it makes me feel good. When I read a book like Utility, that reinforces my thoughts, it makes me feel good. So when I read the following quote in the book, it made me feel good. You say that real estate professionals will have to create and execute a comprehensive video strategy within the next 3 years. There's no topic that Dave and I have talked more about on the show than video. We talk about video. We've had Raj on numerous times. We talk about video, video, video. What is it with video and real estate and video and utility that makes you say something like you're going to have a video strategy in the next 3 years?
Well, I think there's a number of different trends that overlap when it comes to video. One is that video is just more powerful and visceral than anything else because it involves more senses, right? It's better than the best photography. It's better than the best blog post because it interacts with you on more senses, period. I mean, that's not a marketing or a business question. It's a physiology question. It just does. I mean, that's why we spend so much money on movies and spend so much time watching television because it works better. It's impactful in ways that other content formats simply are not. Combine that with the fact that everybody now has a smartphone, or many people, most people, and combine that with the fact that now with high-speed 4G LTE bandwidth, you can actually stream videos on your phone from just about anywhere, certainly every urbanized area. So video in your pocket is a reality now in a way that it wasn't that long ago. And of course, you see the rise of mobile-centric video, things like Instagram video, things like Vine, etc. And then you start laying on top of that the trend of millennials and others who are becoming more and more important in the home buying process and their sort of love for all things mobile-centric and video. And you get to the point where you just have to do this, right? Every year I think, geez, we're going to see a tapering of how much video that we consume, and every year it goes up by an extraordinary, 43% last year was the increase in video watching online in the U.S. 43% in 1 year increase over what it already was, which is super high. So, look, the reality is this. As an author, this kind of bums me out, what am I going to tell you? But it's true. The reality is that Johnny don't read. Johnny don't want to read anymore. People don't want to read. They want to look at pictures. They want content to be to be sort of spoon-fed to them via video. It's why I do a daily video called Jay Today. I mean, there's a reason why I put that show together, because people want to consume video. And while I have a blog and we spend tons of time in it, we've got to be able to give them video as well. And the same is true for real estate professionals, if not more so, because you're going to get to the point where if you don't have tons of great video showcasing your listings, assuming you're on that side of the business, you're just not going to be on the radar. You're just not.
Erica, talk about the way you've seen, I mean, homes.com, video impact, a lot of this stuff. Talk about the impact of video, and then one of your, we talked about before we got on the show, we are legally obligated to mention Raj Kazar's name every episode here at Mobile Agent TV. He happens to be in the book, so that gave us a reason to say it. So talk about video, and then talk about sort of why you think Raj was such a great example when it came to video.
Yeah, I mean, so video is a huge part of our strategy at Homes.com and for Rent.com. In fact, even just the last couple weeks alone, we've been putting major emphasis on for Rent.com, where we now have homepage takeovers where you can buy out an entire homepage video, and that's what people want. They want the whole page now to be video as opposed to less information on square footage or rents and all of that. So we're making the sole focus around that video and centered around that, and 3D floor plans and so forth. So definitely looking at video in a different way. The reason why I like Raj so much for this example is, the Boutique Real Estate Group, they do some tremendous work, and they're super creative in not only marketing strategy, but in their interactive media. And what's great about them is their consistency across the board with social media, but then also layering in that video, whether it's long-form, beautiful video where they're doing high-definition films of the homes where it actually makes you feel like they're selling a lifestyle where I can picture myself in that home as opposed to just some of the feature sets within the home. And then even down to their strategy on hyperlapse, right, and just doing some more of that micro video is just brilliant because it's capturing that short attention span. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, Raj, I think probably the most consistent guest we've had on the show the last year and a half, and a guy that's just an example and always pushing it, and someone who's definitely pushed us, our team, to continue to push towards video. And like Jay was saying earlier on too as well, Raj price points a lot different than a lot of the price points around North America, but that doesn't, you don't need to have a red camera at $50,000 to be producing a good video. I saw a video that was texted to me from my co-host here, Dave, where he was playing with a drone the other day. So I asked him, are you playing or are you actually shooting video? And you're actually shooting video. So is that you're doing community stuff, Dave?
Well, yeah, we actually contracted to do that, but that wasn't community video. That was about a particular house, the first one. But we are I'm taking down all the community video we have, and we're gonna incorporate this drone into it because the overview, just people really want that. I mean, it's so much different, and so we're going in that direction. Be careful what I say here in the States, though, because drones are like,
you're not the one flying it. You're not the one flying it. You're flying it.
I'm not the one flying it, and it's like Ebola. It's like this. It's on top of everybody's mind, but it's a bunch of nonsense. So.
You have to get a pilot license apparently here in Vancouver to fly, or out in BC to fly one. Speaking about being different, Jay, there's no doubt that I believe Youtility is. Especially personality-wise, is the thing that we want to build our business around and have built our business around for a lot of years. Does Youtility work so well because very few people are doing it? Example, the spa company answering all those questions, so when you search for pools, they're the only one giving it to you. What happens if the majority of agents out there embrace Youtility and there's 7 guys in Bridgewater, New Jersey reviewing the local restaurants? Does it only work because people aren't willing to do it?
That's a good question. It kind of calls into mind the concept of content shock that my friend Mark Schaefer has put out there, that eventually if everybody's creating great content, content fails to succeed. That's probably true at some level. But I think there's so many topics for real estate agents who can cover, right? It's not just restaurants. It's youth sports. It's doctors. It's parks. I mean, it's pets and pet grooming. I mean, there's so many different topics that real estate professionals can cover that most businesses can't. I mean, you have way more room to move than most industries do, which is one of the reasons why Erica and I wrote this book for this audience. That I don't think you'll have too many people doing the exact same topic in it. And ultimately, your point is well founded. That when multiple people start to try and succeed with utility, it becomes not just a content creation contest, but it becomes a content amplification contest. And that's something we didn't talk about so much in Utility for Real Estate, but we talked about a lot in the Utility book, the full-length book, which is, okay, you have this now, how does anybody know that this exists? And that's really where social media comes into play. What I say all the time is that content or utility is fire, and social media is gasoline, right? That what you're trying to do is take your great utility information and then use social media to make sure people know about it. So the amplification, promotional side of it becomes really important when you have that kind of competition for attention.
Now, Erica, I don't want to be a bit of a bummer, but I will gladly be. I think one of the realities is that agents aren't going to do it. I think it's the same way that when I get out in front of a group of people and tell them word for word how to go paperless, I think a lot of people want to do it. I think a lot of people are going to go out and read the book, and I think everyone should. But I think it's only going to sit, and actually someone's actually going to give it a year. I mean, perhaps I'm wrong. But this is such a longer play in such a short-term mindset of an industry that I just don't think there's many Raj Khazars out there. I don't think there's a lot of of these agents out there that are going to practice utility. Tell me I'm wrong.
Well, I would like to think that the more we talk about utility in the industry and the more we can all share our stories at our conferences and at the local conferences, I think people will start to really take a look at it and how it's transforming businesses. And it's all about being transparent. And when you're looking at consumers today, consumers becoming more educated on the process of real estate in general than ever before, to the point where some consumers are actually not even choosing to work with a real estate professional because they feel like they have so much knowledge. And I am actually guilty of that. So I just bought my first home with my husband this past year, and we decided to work directly with the seller because we felt so confident in all of the knowledge that we had gained, right? So if consumers are doing extensive research online and they're really trying to understand the process, then why can't the agent be at the top of that funnel and be super transparent and provide all of that information that I was looking for but I had to find somewhere else? Go put that at the top at the discovery phase and be the center, and you're going to start seeing the way it changes. And there's a lot of ways that real estate professionals can really be transparent. You guys have awesome information from local neighborhoods to first-time home buying tips, which I wish I had more of, how to understand the mortgage process, right? That was a big thing for me as a first-time buyer. Even down to what questions to ask in the home inspection, like being transparent and having those laid out are really important, and thinking about checklists and infographics to really help simplify that process. As an industry, we have all this information. How do we really bring that forward to the user and put that on our website and put that out social media so that when we're searching for that, we find you?
I completely agree, and I think a lot of it has to do with the change in our industry that a lot of people like Dave and I have embraced, and a lot of agents are still trying to hold on to, is that we're not the keepers of the data anymore,
right?
Which is fantastic. I don't want to be. But I think there's a lot of agents out there that have been doing this for a long time that trying to like Jay says, I have no idea now what my one thing was. My one thing used to be I got the info and you don't have it, and now that one thing is gone, and so that really changes the mindset. And so Dave, you're very, the amount of people that share on the show and are absolutely transparent, and Dave, you're completely transparent. You're saying, if you want my listing presentation that's rock solid, call me, I'll give it to you. Is that your nature, or there has to be value there, that you think that in that transparency there's no like and trust built?
I don't know. I got it from my father. My father shared everything with everybody. That's the way he was. He helped anybody. It didn't matter. I got divorced, and he's helping my ex-wife move. I mean, you know, it's just where it's my nature. I didn't read a book that told me, hey, if I do these things, it's all going to come back to me. That's just the way I've led my life, and it's never done me wrong. But you know, on that other thing about talking about the number of agents that may embrace this stuff. My experience is that no matter what it is in real estate, the 80-20 rule applies. 20% are selling all the real estate, they're doing all the technology, they're doing the things right. Of that 20%, there's a few at the top that are really going to do it. And unless somebody proves otherwise to me, that's the way it's always going to be. At least that's my experience, 35 years. There's always a small group of people that are going to embrace this stuff.
And Dave, I think you're absolutely right. And I think actually after reading Game Changers and having a chat actually with Terry the other day about, I think going forward, it's more like going to be like a 90-10. I just think we're in a 90-10 world.
Actually, our business is changing so rapidly, and for the people that are doing, embracing what we're talking about all the time and listening to the people and reading the books we talk about and putting your arms around this stuff, they're the ones that are going to survive. Our business, I don't think, we're going to be just a few of us in a very short period of time that are selling the large majority of the real estate. I just think that's the way it's
I completely agree. Because Michael talked about it a minute ago that historically real estate professionals' key advantage has been access to information and expertise that they had sort of a false economy stranglehold on, right? They had access to listings, they had access to sort of processes and rules that maybe most people didn't know, but there was not necessarily a reason why that information wasn't out there. It just was sort of historical precedent. The exact same thing happened to the travel agent business. The exact same thing happened to the stockbroker business, right? All of a sudden that information that used to be their property becomes free to all, and now how many travel agents do you have? Not that many, but you have a ton of people using Hipmunk and Expedia and Orbitz and all the things like that, and you already see that in real estate with organizations like Redfin and to some degree what Erica and her team do at Homes.com, that you take the information, you give it to people. That doesn't mean you don't need real estate professionals, but real estate professionals have to compete on something else other than access to information, and I think that's why Youtility is so important. Not only does it make you a better business, help you build your business, but I think it's to some degree an existential requirement. If you want to be in this business 5 years from now, you probably ought to spend $3 on this book.
and by the other utility book, because I think they absolutely have to go hand in hand. Jay, on that note though, about what you just said, if I don't honestly tell you about the pitfalls and the benefits of being a first-time home buyer, because I don't want the information to be out there at the chance that Erica might be empowered to go and buy a property without an agent, if I don't do it, the agent next door is going to do it. The information will be out.
Exactly.
So it's only we can make a pact and say no one talk about this stuff.
Right. Yeah, you don't have that kind of mafia control.
No. So if it's going to be out there, shouldn't you be the one providing it?
Not only should you be the one providing it, but you should provide it in multiple ways. You should provide it in a video. You should provide it in an ebook. You should provide it in a blog. You should provide it with a series of skywriting exercises or whatever, right? Because people consume content in different ways, and I think that's the sort of that's the next level play here, right? Which is, okay, we're going to be great at video. All right. You got that one. Now what's your next thing, right? So you should be good at SlideShare, and you got that covered. Now Instagram, and so taking your utility and repackage into different forms for different audiences, I think, is the next level play. And it's so funny what you say about, if you don't give it away, somebody else will. One of the case studies in the book that we go back to a couple times is Joe Manousa from his Manousa USA Real Estate in Tallahassee. He has a downloadable ebook on his website, which is how to sell your home yourself. He only represents sellers, and he actually gives you for free a 60-page guide of how to do it yourself without an agent. Now that is, I think for most of us, pretty counterintuitive. But what he told us in the book is that so often people get to about page 20 and be like, man, doing a FSBO is a pain in the ass. I don't want to do that. That's way too much work. I don't got that kind of time. And who do they call first? They call him because his logo's on every page of the book that he gave them. It's brilliant, right? It's like jiu-jitsu marketing. It's like, let me tell you how to not hire me, and then, oh, by the way, that's going to make you hire me.
Absolutely. I think it's a great example, and it's completely counterintuitive. I know that Tony Joe, a former guest on the show too as well, he's got a roadmap of what the steps are that a buyer has to go through to purchase a home. And a lot of buyers think it's the first step and the second step, but there's like 30 more steps, and he just sort of lays it out as a roadmap, and he goes, this is the gauntlet we're going to walk. And people go, oh, it's not what I thought, but that has to come from the education process. And when a big thing about utility is utter transparency. I mean, the pool company basically says, which is an example in the original utility book and in the utility for real estate book, basically said, here's the reasons why you're not going to want to buy the type of pool that we're going to sell. So that you end up with very educated buyers, so that when they do have a meeting, I think when they actually meet the client, their conversion rate is 80% versus the industry average of like 10, because they've eliminated all the people that aren't going to buy it for the reasons that you could have told them up front. It makes a whole lot of sense to go through that process.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an amazing case study. And Marcus Sheridan, who runs that company, wrote the foreword to the utility hardcover book, and this principle has completely changed not only his business but his whole life. And you're exactly right. I mean, they sell swimming pools, which is a considered decision. It's not quite as heavily considered perhaps as buying a home, but it's an expensive proposition. People do a lot of research on it and think about it a while. And the average new customer for their business, we talk about this in utility for real estate, the average new customer reads 105 pages of their blog, 105 pages on average.
That's
how many people watching this have 105 pages on their website?
No, yeah, absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. And so when they go through it, every time they turn that page, they're building know, like, and trust. They know this person's going to tell me the truth, whether it's what I want to hear or not want to hear. They're going to. It's fantastic. It's just.
I mean, they may not buy a pool, right? There's a chance they're like, you know what, it's too much money. I don't want to deal with it. But if they do buy a pool, they're almost definitely going to buy it from those guys.
Well, I mean, it comes down to what we talked about, actually, agent safety too, as well, the other day, Dave. And to get slightly off topic, but if the client isn't willing to sit down with you and go through a buyer consultation before you go out with them, but by nature of being honest and saying, here's the cost involved, and here's what the maintenance is like, and here's what you might be eliminating a lot of purchases that you don't have to put that time and effort into, and your resources are better spent somewhere else. And that's, I mean, that's utility, in my opinion, is telling the people about the pitfalls. Not only so that they don't get into a situation that they don't want to get into, but so you're not getting into a situation and wasting time that you shouldn't be doing. Mm-hmm. Dave, speak to that. Speak to not wasting your time by qualifying a buyer. Okay.
What's to say, Michael?
I know your opinion on it.
Wasting your time. I just like, if you don't come into the office and sit down and have a consultation, you are not getting in my car. Period. End of sentence. Done. All right, that's the way it is, and our team is coached the same way,
But on that note, and to take it to a completely real estate level, there's a difference in Canada, I'm sure it's in the States too as well, between pre-qualification and pre-approval, right?
Yes, there is.
All my clients get pre-approved before we go and take a look at homes. In a survey that came out locally here, 30% of the deals failed in the subject removal process because of financing. None of my deals fall through because of financing. To go through all the work, to disappoint your client that found the house they wanted to buy because you didn't do your work and your information and you're taking care of your client up front. Not only have you wasted your time, your client is upset. They're probably going to go somewhere else because you didn't take care of them. It's magical how there's a lot of things, and I think utility is basically the definition of win-win. But if you do your job right, you're going to do right by your client. And you're going to do right by yourself. Once again, transparency. The reason why you're not getting in my car is because deals aren't going to fall apart, and we don't want to waste your time. Talk about Erica and Jay, or let's start with Erica. Erica. The barriers, the one thing that makes me so excited about utility for real estate is because we're a very human business, very person to person, belly to belly, and I think that's where utility is. It's very useful. I look at someone like Nike and I go, okay, how would utility play out there? It's not as easy, I think, to implement something like that as it is when we are actually belly to belly with our clients, where we actually, by the end of the process, feel like family, or they should. What are the barriers for agents and real estate professionals to implement utility in 2014?
Well, I think some of the barriers, they either want the results to happen immediately, or they don't have the time. But honestly, we do need to start carving out some of our time, because we do hold all of this wealth of information within the industry. Like Jay mentioned, need to repackage that up. So what I recommend is just to start focusing on one or two of those tactics that he talks about in the book versus focusing on the whole view, because that can look a little overwhelming. But if you tackle a couple facets at a time, and then remember that utility is also never ending, right? So you constantly need to commit to evaluating your marketing, making sure that it's useful. And if you're not proficient in social media or mobile marketing or video or some of the cutting edge things that are happening, that's okay. But we have to remember that as an industry, the next generation buyer and seller, they eat, breathe, and sleep this stuff. So we need to be open-minded to connect with the resources that we have in the industry, like your podcasts and your webinars and newsletters and you name it. There's a wealth of information out there where you can kind of latch on to those folks to get that information to help you repackage all of this great wealth of knowledge that you have. So I think it's just baby steps, and that'll feel less overwhelming.
Well, I mean, I just know it's the way I feel about homes.com. When I take a webinar and I watch one of the things you're doing, I feel different at the end of it, the feeling that I know who you guys are. You're not on a website, there's actual people behind it, and you feel like you get to know that person and you see them out on social, and it really breaks down the barrier and makes you extremely human. Interesting just point that was put up on the page, because you guys do talk about Redfin in the book, Jay, which is a company that, once again, shaking things up, and a company that exists because it was created recently. It's not built on traditional model. They acquired WalkScore this week, apparently, and there's a utility play, giving that information about what. Not only what's the home like within the fence or in the walls, but what's the community like around. That's an interesting acquisition that really speaks to their all in when it comes to transparency, number one, and into utility. So speak to Redfin's model a little bit, Jay.
Yeah, I think they're sort of the logical culmination of where utility leads, which is, we're going to find a way to make all information free and all information transparent. And if you can do that, then it gives them a competitive advantage. What I find really interesting about what they do is, a lot of the information and insights that they've captured about individual properties, they just give away for free. You don't have to be working with a Redfin agent to get access to a lot of these resources, which I think is pretty bold and very much a utility play. And so, they sort of have this thesis that all information should be available to everybody, and including, they've got individual reviews for individual agents. It's almost like treating an agent like a restaurant and having Yelp reviews and things like that. It's a really fascinating company, and I'm glad we were able to include them in the book, because I think they're onto something. Now, clearly that's multiple steps beyond where a lot of people are willing to go today, but I think it shows you a glimpse of what the future is going to be like.
And it's kind of interesting, too, as well, for that to be a larger company or a brokerage. I think one of the things that makes it difficult to implement utility is the corporate barrier, the big structure. The nice thing about an agent or a team, let's say there's 3 of you that's on a team, you're able to be very nimble. You could agree that utility is a great practice and implement it starting tomorrow. So outside big companies, the great thing about real estate is that utility can be implemented like that, because we act as little independent companies. Erica, talk about maybe another one of the examples in the book, because we want to give people actual information. Then we ask one more question of Jane, then we'll let you guys get on with your day, and we're going to give away 5 copies of the book. So stay tuned. Erica, talk about maybe another example that you really connect to when it comes to utility and real estate.
So I think Hub 4122, the coffee shop idea, is absolutely brilliant. And Jay had the opportunity to interview these guys with Brad Bell Real Estate. They're actually a leading brokerage in Queensland, Australia. And, we talked about the one thing earlier today, and they really took that one thing and took it to the next level. One thing was really being a major part of their local community, and so what they did is the first layer of that was starting some social media pages, calling it the Hub 4122, and 4122 is that local postal code for them. And they took that to the next step, was to create a website all around that, which is all about providing local information for the residents. And then the top layer of that, or the very last layer, if you will, was to actually expand and create a coffee shop that resides within their corporate complex. So it was an awesome way for them to connect with the local community and then, you know, subtly position themselves as the top firm, but not only a top firm, but also one that connects with the local community and being that local connector. So I thought that was a really cool example of someone that took that one thing and took it to the next level.
I love that example, and viewers of the regular viewers of the show will know why. We've built, this is a coffee shop that we're living in, basically an art gallery. It's a little paperless office, and we're in a little boutique community outside Vancouver. And so we get local artists to put art on the wall, and every month we hand the keys over to the very gallerish looking office, and they put on their own art show. They bring their 400 people through with some wine and cheese. We don't ask for anything in return. We just get to, you know, introduce ourselves at the front door. I think, you know, when I hear someone going to the coffee shop model, especially in today's the technology that we're using, we all as agents, if we're embracing any form of technology, are meeting our clients in coffee shops. You might as well, you know, when I read that part of that about in the book, I went, wow, I mean, that is a gutsy level to go, saying I'm going to put my own coffee shop. But you could see where utility could eventually get to the play. I think it's very, very interesting. Dave, you read something like that, you know, that's obviously from a bigger point of view, but there's really no end to the ways utility could be implemented. And once again, find out what your strengths are and play to them, and find a way to deliver utility to the consumer.
Absolutely. The thing that's kind of got me excited is I've been doing some form of this for years and years, all kinds of little things here and there. But and some other agents have. But right now we got all this information in one spot. We got this show. We got this book with a blueprint in it, and so now I can hone it down and go deep with it. And it's pretty exciting to me.
And when you read the examples of the book too as well, and one of the things that I failed to ask at the beginning of the show, but I want to ask it. I'll ask it now to you, Jay. Is a lot of these examples have been implemented in the last 5 years, right? Is utility, and I'll go back and actually write the question, because I was pretty proud of the question that I wrote. It's in here somewhere. Is utility has utility always been useful and always been important, or are we living in a fundamental culture shift that has brought utility to the forefront? Because it seems to me traditional buy our stuff, Pepsi's better than Coke, it is, just trust us, has worked for so long. Is that what agents have to realize, that we are living through a culture shift? The way that we consume and trust information has changed, and that's why utility has more value in 2014 than perhaps 2004.
That is a great question. I am proud of it. You should be proud of it. I think it's both. I've never mentioned this ever in any show that I've done. Erica doesn't know this story either. My family owned a furniture store for like 250 years or some damn thing in Nebraska. And we don't have it anymore because my dad's colorblind, which is not what you want in your furniture salesman. So we like, this is going to look great in your house, I swear. So we got rid of it. We got rid of the furniture store a couple decades ago. But I have something in the other room of my house. It's a calendar that the furniture store used to give away every year, the Baer's furniture calendar, and I have the 1906 calendar. And they would give them out to all the farmers in the surrounding area, and that was their calendar for the year, the same thing that Pirelli Tires has done and lots of other companies have done. And that is a utility, right? You are giving something of value with no expectation of immediate return. And so the concept of utility has worked for well over 100 years, if not longer. I was going to put that case study in the original book, but it was a little too self-referential, so I left it out. But so it has always worked. But you are exactly right. It works more now, and it's more important now for two reasons. One, we always have access to information now in ways that we didn't even 3 years ago, much less 5. Once everybody started carrying around a smartphone, and once everybody could get online at any time, it changed the balance of power forever, right? You have access to all of the world's information at all times in your pants, right? That's a game changer. And at the same time, what we've talked about in both books is that the amount of information that consumers need before making a decision about anything, about buying this pen or a chicken sandwich or a house, has gone up considerably, right? That zero moment of truth research that shows that people need more and more and more and more information before buying anything, not necessarily because people are more indecisive. It's that they need more information than ever because they have access to more information than ever. So today, why would you not read 105 blog posts about a swimming pool when you can? Why would you just say, oh, I hope it works out, here's my 50 grand? Same thing happens in real estate, if not more so, because it's the biggest purchase you're ever going to make. So on one hand, utility has always worked. On the other hand, it's more important than ever, simply because our thirst for information is so much greater than it's ever been in the past.
I totally agree. I mean, when we deal with My North Langley and the crowdsourcing that happens there, I mean, the question yesterday was, I'm looking for a new dentist. Who should I use? I mean, that's a very personal, question that you're asking perfectly great strangers. That it's because we don't trust the company to tell us the truth. We expect others to do that. I mean, I've said it before, the amount of things that I have purchased that are worth more than $250, that when I went in the store, the only thing I needed the salesperson to do for me was get it down from the shelf, because I did my research, the last week. I don't need the store to provide the information anymore. I just need the store for the product. And I think that's why there's been such an enormous shift to purchasing stuff online. It's because we don't need to touch it as much as we used to, because we can get that information from somebody else. So it's interesting. Jay, I want to leave you with this, and it's kind of an unfair question, but since I said it to you before, I think that's fine. If you were to envision the most ambitious implementation of utility in the real estate industry, and I hope I have the guts to take it up or someone else does, with all the examples you've looked at, and you've lived and breathed utility now for a couple years, going to different conferences, what would be sort of a dream implementation of utility for you?
I don't know. I'm not going to answer that question. I'm going to answer a different question. I don't know what the dream implementation would be, but it would probably be predictive, right? So probably kind of some of the things that Star Partners are playing with in Australia is augmented reality, right? So you hold your phone up, and it shows you all the historical pricing for that neighborhood, sort of Zillow, but augmented reality, and tying that back to your own brokerage and your own expertise. That's probably where I would go. I think that's the best option going forward. But I think the question I want to answer is what's the first thing you should do if you want to get involved with utility as a real estate professional? And I think the easiest way to think about this, and I know Dave's pondered this, is how can you take everything you know that you've learned over the 1, 5, 10, 20, 30, 50 years you've been in this business, take everything you know and figure out how to tell people that one bite at a time. Just create the ultimate FAQ of what's in your mind. If you start there and do that well, then the technology part will take care of itself.
Erica, on that note, what real estate agents in their head think is just everyday and not useful information to a first-time home buyer that was desperate for that information, we might think it's boring and commonplace, but for you, it's what you need to hear. So talk about, just to that, what questions would have you liked to have answer as a first-time home buyer that you weren't able to access now that you've gone through the process?
Yeah, so we purchased our home in a really well-established neighborhood, but the homes are older, right? So we bought a 1940s Dutch colonial home. So I wish I had answers about, what the process is in buying an older home, what your expectations are. It's a lot different than buying something new. Even down to the point where I was researching infographics, I needed to better understand, because I've been a renter my whole life, to better understand this process in a very condensed view in an infographic that I could wrap my mind around what we were about to get into. So, I mean, everything from questions down to the closing process, mortgage rates, loans, everything. I mean, there's so much as a first-time home buyer that we need to have access to. And if you can put it all together in one central location, maybe it's a slideshow, maybe it's bits and pieces in infographics and Pinterest and whatnot, I think that really equips us better to make those decisions, and perhaps we would have definitely made some changes.
Well, I know one of the most viewed videos we've ever had is what is a strata fee, and I think it's called a condo fee, some in the States or whatever you guys call it. But the most boring information, but for the people that need that information, it certainly isn't boring. So basically what the pool company did was answer every question they've ever been asked, and the information's out there. Okay, so if you want to get your hands on a copy of Youtility for Real Estate, for the first 5 people that send us an email at mobileagenttv.com, I will pass your email address on to Erica, and homes.com will send you a copy of Youtility for Real Estate. Encourage every person that's watching this live, watching this recorded, listening to the audio podcast. You can go back in my history of social media, go back to last summer when I was in San Diego reading the book. I'm not saying that Youtility is a great book because Jay's on the show. I posted Instagram photos of me and Facebook posts. And
you did. You did.
It's a great book, and I think it's really important to implement Youtility going forward in this business. Now, I do want to let everyone know that Erica and Jay will be on the water cooler Wednesday, and there's a couple of reasons why I want to say that. To continue this conversation that I think is super, super interesting, but number 2, Jimmy and Chris will be broadcasting from Paris at 3 o'clock in the morning. So that itself will be of interest because they usually have a drink on the show.
Worth a tune in. Worth a tune in for that.
That is, you have to watch that episode of the Water Cooler at curator.com. Erica, let people know how they can get a hold of you and homes.com and forrent.com.
You can check us out at homes.com/Youtility, and you'll have information on us and the book.
And the book is available to purchase now at Amazon.com. It will be released, I believe, on November the 4th. And we did have someone, Chris, down in Costa Rica, great RE/MAX agent down there, did say that apparently at Amazon.ca, which is the Canadian version, it is available for $2.99 as a Kindle edition, and the hard copy is available on November the 4th. Is there a hard copy version of it?
There is not a hard copy version of Real Estate. It's Kindle, Kindle Nook, Google Play.
Fantastic. Jay, how do people get a hold of you, the Youtility book, and Convince and Convert?
You can go to convinceandconvert.com, or you can go to jbaer.com and find all kinds of things, more than you ever want to know.
Yes, and by the way, your video your video blogging that you do is a great example. I saw you out there in Norway holding up the camera.
Oh, thank you. That was fun.
And doing 3 minutes. It's this is Jay Baer, and he's doing iPhone video blogging and bringing a ton of value. So I think a lot of people just have to get out of the way of themselves. Next week we're taking a week off. We return to the air Friday, November the 7th. 10 o'clock Pacific, 1 o'clock Eastern, when our guest is going to be Ryan Hills of the resource.tv. We're going to be talking a lot about video, about blogging, about Youtility. Hey, Dave, there's another couple guys practicing Youtility every single day, right? I mean, when you think about it, it's exactly what they're doing.
That's all I do. Yep, they're really cool.
Yeah.
Definitely enjoy that show because he's very interesting.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun, interactive show. If you have any referrals heading out to the East Coast of the United States, get a hold of Dave. He'll put you in the hands of the right RE/MAX agent. Any referrals coming out to the East Coast or the West Coast of Canada, get a hold of me and I'll put you in the hands of the right RE/MAX agent. And as Melanie Gellia of RE/MAX Fort McMurray wants us to end every show, please tell 5 other agents about Mobile Agent TV. It's why we can reach out to amazing guests like Jay and like Erica that give us an hour of the time, bring a ton of value, give us an hour worth of Youtility. We really appreciate it. Erica, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate the time. Awesome content. Thank you very much. Jay, pleasure talking with you. Thanks for writing this book. You too has tons of value. Encourage everyone to go and purchase it right now.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. We'll see you in a couple weeks, and we'll see everyone in 2 weeks.
Thanks, guys.